Hey, okay. Yeah, started off live and yep, was moving a little thing out of the way. Distractions, so many distractions in today's world, but we're here to focus on when when children that struggle with different challenges get aggressive. I'm AJ McMahon. Thank you for being part of this series as we empower children to overcome the challenges they face, whether it's ADHD symptoms, aggression, whatever it might be. Sometimes the challenges lead to aggressive behavior. And we start this series with part one that's located in the description below. Please be willing to like, subscribe, stay connected because we're doing series because we've got a journey together. Most of you have not encountered these problems overnight, and as they say, they don't go away overnight, but we can be effective in striving to do everything we can to empower transformation. And that's why we're here. So please check out part one of this series where we're talking about overcoming aggression. And now part two, we're going to build on part one. Part one focuses on laying a foundation that I encourage you to check out when you want to look at myths or other things that might be in your way, because you want to build this foundation on truth. You want to build it on resilience. You want to build it on your capability to be effective in transformation. Effective doesn't mean that everything we do is just going to make the challenge stop. What it means is, what can we do and how can we do it to the best of our ability to be able to affect or try to bring about the transformation we're looking for. That's all we've got. If we could change our children, we wouldn't need these series. We wouldn't need books. You wouldn't be pulling out your hair and looking like me. Things would be so much better, so much different. We can't control our children, but we can control ourselves and our environment. There are things we can do. So let's dive in today. When we're talking about being able to help empower a child to overcome the challenge of aggressive behavior. One, as we talked about in the first video, it's important to recognize that your child likely can overcome that challenge. When we look at our children, sometimes it feels like the problems are overwhelming beyond their control or ability. It doesn't mean that it's not an intense struggle, but likely with the right support, your child can be empowered to be on a path to overcome the challenge because likely they've got to build the strength internally. Part of this path is to recognize that we're going to use a metaphor like a fire. And however this fire, which is the aggressive behavior started, however it occurred, no matter what's been going on, a lot of times people, caregivers like yourselves that are wrestling with these situations, can be consumed with a lot of shame or a lot of guilt, a lot of feeling like they've done things to either cause it. Maybe feel like they let things slide early, or they've done things to cause it, or maybe they feel like it's part of their genetics or their own temperament or something's coming back on them. Whatever it is, a lot of times people feel a great responsibility. I've also worked with other parents who, when they look at things, they say, well, it's because of this particular person, a dad, an uncle, a grandpa, or some other person. It could be a grandma, regardless of gender. They look at someone and say, well, this child is acting like this because of them, because they've seen this behavior or because of how they've been affected, or maybe we can look at it and say it's because of trauma or other things. But regardless of what's where the child is now, the hope is that your child can, and most children can. When I say most, I mean the great majority can be on a path to overcome the challenge. Our responsibility is to be as clear as we can on this path. That means we've got to, if we feel like we've done something or somebody else have done something, there needs to be a process of forgiveness. Why? Because we don't need to be caught up in anger, frustration, guilt, shame, or anything that's going to cloud our path and our ability to distract from the focus on what we can do to help empower this child, what we can do to try to create the most safety and stability and empowerment we can. That's what we've got. That's what we get an opportunity to focus on. So whether it's forgiveness, whether it's being able to come to grips with some things and just being able to accept those, not because we're happy about them, but because it's a part of our being able to recondition and transform our mind, whether it's a matter of ownership or whatever it might be, I encourage you in your own process to get with the people who love you, who have been encouraging you to accept the truths and the things that have been helping you to be able to clear the path for us to be able to focus on how to empower and to be able to empower a child when they're struggling, regardless of any age and whatever age we talk about. I believe the tips we talk about today, when we're focusing on specifically how to empower a child to discontinue the aggressive behavior, I think they'll be able to help you with a child who is aggressive with you, or maybe you're trying to work with them on being not aggressive with other people. Also, of any age, whether it's 6 months, believe it or not, that can be the case, or it could be into their teenage years. The main ages we're focused on are 2 to 12, but this can extrapolate. Also, when we're focused on this, we're talking about if they're aggressive with you first. That's the context. And then you can take that if they're not aggressive with you, but you're trying to empower them at school or with grandparents or someone else, to not be aggressive in those contexts. Then you can take what we have and be able to build on that to those other situations or relationships. So, in this metaphor of a fire, regardless of this fire, we're going to use the fire to say that this is what is driving your child. There can be triggers or different things, but this is the fire within your child that's coming out in these situations. And we're going to look at a metaphor for how you can be able to fight the fire. So, you as the primary caregiver, when I say the primary caregiver, probably you are heavily invested in the child, and you are at least one of the primary caregivers. Now, if you're not the direct parent or the primary caregiver, then you're going to be able to add support. But a lot of times it's the primary caregiver, the person that's interacting with that child the most, that's had the deepest relationship with the child, that's going to be the most impactful person to be a part of this and likely leading the charge. So keep that in mind, whether you are a primary caregiver or whether you're a support person, because support people can definitely have an impact, but it's the primary person that really wants to lead the charge, the primary person in the depth of relationship, whether biologically or not. So when we come to it, when we talk about fighting the fire, these are the elements. So love is the main element. Love is the main element because you're not fighting against your child. You're helping your child fight against the struggle that they have within, that fire that rages within them, that causes them to lash out, oftentimes to be able to achieve their desires or get out of things that they don't want. So when you're talking about this, recognize that it's not personal oftentimes, even though the fire may be directed at you, it's often not personal, even though it can feel that way. Regardless of whether how we can feel angry, we can feel frustrated, we can feel shame or guilt, whatever we feel, it's important that we respond in our actions with love. What is love? Love is being able to say, I'm going to take a stand against your behavior, but I'm going to recognize this is your behavior. This is your challenge. We're going to take a stand against that. I'm going to see beyond that to the purpose of knowing that I'm focused on empowering you. So when in that, love is I'm going to treat you well. I'm going to treat you fairly. I'm not going to let my anger or frustration or anything else direct my actions. I may feel those things, but I'm not going to let them take control of my actions. So when I take a stand, it's going to be in love. If even if I raise my voice to a degree, it's going to be purposeful. It's going to be intentional because I believe that is something that might help to grab your attention or to shake you out of things. I'm going to be intentional about the calm, the peace that I have when we have these situations. I'm going to be intentional about the relationship that I'm going to communicate that no matter what you do, no matter what you've done, no matter whether I feel like giving up or even have, and I'm trying to recover from that I love you no matter what. I'm going to, at times when it's calm, that I love you. In my actions, in times when it's not calm, I'm going to communicate to you that I love you. even if there are consequences that come in, well, which we'll get to later, I'm going to still strive to spend time with you, whether it's eating dinner or taking a walk or asking about your day, because it is about love. And love can be one of the greatest firefighters, because children, anger, they say anger begets anger. And when children or a youth are in a situation where they're angry and we respond with anger, they can anticipate that, and that can cause the fire to rage. But when we respond with love, it doesn't necessarily put out their fire. It just means that it's hard. Now their fire doesn't have something to grab onto as fuel. And so it's harder for them to be able to have their fire rage against someone who's loving them. Love doesn't mean that you're just sitting there and saying, oh, your behavior is okay, or being sweet when they're acting in a way that is harmful. That's not love. Love means that, when we go to definition of love, I'm gonna treat you the way I would want to be treated in these situations. And sometimes that can be a firm way, but it's all about love. And it's all about that relationship. And it's all about us not losing our cool so that we can be an effective firefighter in those situations. What does love mean to you? Think about how love can play out, not in a Pollyannish type of soft. We're not talking about that. What might real love look like in these very challenging situations? So think about that. Courage. Courage is your flame retardant suit. Courage means that you stand in the fire, you look your child in the eye in non aggressive ways, and you don't back down. Why is this important? A lot of times when children are in these situations with the anger and aggression, they can kind of get into bullying tactics in these situations. And in some ways, they're kind of operating, not saying your child is a terrorist, but they're kind of operating like a terrorist in the sense that the anger can be a way for your child to recognize, okay, when I let go of this anger, this can create some different ways of people responding to me. And children can see those because they're highly intelligent and feed into those. And so, with our courage, we're being able to say to our children, no, this no longer is going to manipulate me. And here's the key, the secret is, people, we can feel fear inside. Even if we feel fear, that doesn't mean that we can't show courage. Courage means taking a stand. Courage means I'm not going to let your anger manipulate me. Courage means I'm going to do what I believe is helpful for you, even if I feel afraid. Courage means I'm going to identify the ways that are important for me to act, to look, to handle myself, the even to be able to display peace in the middle of the storm. Courage means doing all those things we think are necessary to be effective in these highly intense situations. That's your flame retardant suit. Consequences are your ladder. If you think about like a fire truck and they have a ladder, or even firefighters may have another ladder that they bring, consequences are important for you to be able to have a plan to bring in consequences. And we're going to circle back to that because we're going to talk about going into these situations and having a helmet. Most of the time, when you look at firefighters, they have a helmet nearby and they put their helmet on in the appropriate situations. And anytime they might see danger, they think they might be danger, anytime they think something might fall in on them, they have their helmet on. Your helmet is your plan. This is the time when it's not chaotic, where you want to sit down with yourself or people who are loving and on your same team to be able to create a plan for how to handle these situations. What is the most effective things? What are the most effective things you've done when the fire rages? Many of you might say, well, I don't feel like anything's effective. It's effective doesn't mean that what you're doing is putting out the fire. Effective means that what you're doing has the opportunity to create empowerment in your child, a path to potentially for your child to be able to put out their own fire. Effective means not unintentionally pouring gas on the fire. Effective means that you're operating in love and courage and handling yourself not based on fear, shame, or guilt, but what you believe is most empowering. So, what have you done? You have done effective things in these situations. What have you done? What have you thought about that you can do? This is part of your plan to go into these situations with a plan. And part of that plan is what might be the latter, what might be consequences, right? So we can hold our children accountable. Consequences are not punishment for the fire. That is not the purpose of consequences. Consequences are to be able to say, child, this that I believe that you can be able to control yourself even when the fire rages inside of you. And I need you to do that. And I'm going to expect you to do that. And when you don't, I've got to have a way of holding you accountable. Otherwise, it's just words that really have no meaning. We don't want to be in that place because that's like blowing on a fire. We just have words that have no meaning. For a child that's blowing on the fire, that's not going to be effective. But consequences say, afterwards, I'm not punishing you for what you did. Consequences mean that I've had this expectation that I've communicated to you up front that you display self control no matter how difficult. And when you don't, I'm going to employ reasonable and effective and fair consequences to say that, yes, I'm going to hold you accountable. That's what accountable, think about the words account plus able. It's the account that tries to bring about the able. So think about your consequences in that. And a ladder, because depending on how much your child lets the fire rage, what are consequences that make sense, that account for that? Is it losing all privileges for the day, or is it losing certain ones like electronics? What consequences might make sense? Is it that your child spends time away in their room for a certain amount of time to be able to reflect and think and calm down and have time away? Um, is it that they have that and some loss of privileges? Is it for a day or two? What kind of makes sense? You also don't want consequences to be necessarily for like a week or two or different things like that. Why? Because as your child, as you're battling these fires, you want to be able to have a reset in a reasonable amount of time where it's like, it's a reset where the consequences matter. But I mean, if you take the consequences for a week, well, your child wrestling with the fire, they might wrestle with it several times during the week. And then what do? You add weeks, now you're at a month and it's just too much. So sometimes, even though you may not feel like the consequences exactly ladder up, think of it as a ladder, sometimes even as building up, like consecutive days, meaning that that day they may lose all or a certain amount of privileges, and then it resets. And the next day, if they don't contain their fire, they may lose privileges for that day or something like that. It may ladder up in that way because what you're trying to do is to be able to have in your pocket ways to hold them accountable and consistently. And that's the thing, to consistently communicate, I'm going to hold you accountable versus some big, there's no kind of big old, you're going to rain down some kind of huge dump of water that's just going to put out this fire, right? So it's about being consistent in fighting the fire with love, with courage, with effective consequences that you can employ on a daily and regular basis that you think hold some weight, but also that you can reset in a reasonable amount of time to just keep on being consistent. A gas mask. You don't want to choke on the fumes, the smoke. What are the fears? What are the doubts? What are the naysayers saying? What are the doubts? What are the things where you've maybe seen these challenges and maybe you doubt yourself or your child's ability? What are the other things where your child may say things or threaten and you might be worried to choke on that smoke? Again, remember your helmet, have a plan for those things. And the gas mask, remember that. So when you're in these situations, you already have a plan, you already have your mask on, you're not letting the smoke choke you out, suffocate you from being able to say or do the things that you need to help fight the fire. And okay, those are the things. So let's go over these things. Love is about the relationship and employing love no matter what. What does love look like in these situations that's not Pollyannish, but is a very effective way when you're taking a stand against aggressive behavior to say, I love you no matter what. I also love myself, and I'm not going to let you treat me this way. What is courage? Courage has to do with your flame retardant suit. Okay, so the love is the water. That's the most powerful firefighter. The water coming out of the hose. Courage is your flame retardant suit. How can you take a stand and not show fear, whether you feel it? Also, courage can be you working with the helmet, which is your plan, to be able to think about what might be the things I may need to bring in to be able to really address this situation. Are there situations where I need to communicate to my child that, hey, if you go here, you try to put your hands on me, I'm going to call the cops or I'm going to call Uncle John. And now, cops or Uncle John or those things are not to be the main firefighters. Those are supports you might look at bringing in because you're communicating to your child that I'm going to have the courage to communicate this boundary and hold it. In any situations where your child can be aggressive, that courage to really figure out what might be effective ways to hold that boundary are so important. They can be ones where you need courage because you might have fear of bringing in other supports or other things or ways to hold your child accountable. Courage can be part of this ladder. Sometimes it might be, look, I can't control you, but I can control this environment. I'm going to make sure that if you are aggressive towards me for this day, you have no consequences. And if you try to bully, I'll take out the TVs, the video games, I'll take them out of the house. I'll have the courage to remove them. If you think that you're going to try to bully past me or do things to do them anyway, when I've set this limit, I'll do what it takes. I'll have the courage to do what it takes to take them out, lock them away for that day, and bring them back. Yes, it's a lot of work. But part of that courage is to be able to say, look, when I set a boundary, when I set a consequence, when I implement this ladder and what this might mean, part of my helmet, part of my plan, part of my courage, my flame retardant suit is to be able to say that in love, I'm going to hold you accountable and it's going to mean something. You're not going to be able to get past or around me. And remember that we want to keep on with this, with the gas mask, to be able to filter out the fears, the doubts, especially when you're implementing this plan and your child continues to have the problems. And you start to wonder if anything's going to work, if it's ever going to be effective. A lot of times, bringing these things together, being able to create an effective plan, bringing these things together and fighting that fire consistently on a whenever it occurs. Also being proactive fire, not that you're trying to appease your child, right? But part of this proactive thing can be communicating to your child up front, not the full part of the plan, but sitting down with them and saying, I know you have this fire that rages inside of you. It's difficult. I'm going to empower you. Whenever you struggle with this, I'm going to take a stand. I'm not going to let you be aggressive with me anymore or with these other people. Here's what's going to happen if you do. You don't have to spell out everything, but you communicate to your child in a sit down up front once your plan is created what's going to happen, and then let them see you implement your plan. This can be very effective in your child understanding that what you said is happening, that you mean business. You love them no matter what, which is a way of fighting for them because you're not fighting against your child. You're fighting against the fire and the challenge that they have within to empower them to put their energy not into fighting against you, but against their fire inside. So we're going to continue this series. And I want to encourage you to recognize that we've got to be in this together. I know this series hadn't covered all of your questions. Well, part of that is because you have wisdom. What can you bring? Reflect on the questions in this video, other questions that have come to mind. Put questions in the chat so we can work together on empowering you to help your child fight the fire to overcome the aggression. I'm AJ McMahon. Glad you're with me. Like, subscribe, stay tuned, stay involved, stay connected. Let's continue this journey. Medical disclaimer: information in these videos are for informational purposes only. It's not to constitute substitution for professional medical advice. Please seek your professional, your qualified healthcare providers for any medical concerns that you might have, and don't stop or change treatment because of anything you've heard in this video. I hope this has empowered you. I'll see you next time.